Well, my name's Terry Simmons, and I was in the Army, 101st Airborne. Uh, I was drafted in 1968 and ended up in Vietnam in 1968. Um, I was with the prestigious 101st Airborne, not by my choosing, but by their choosing. So I had no clue when I hit the ground in Vietnam where I was going to end up or what I was going to be doing. Um, I ended up carrying an M60 machine gun. They called it the Pig, 1,300 rounds a minute. And I still didn't know the first day how bad it was. There were 7 bodies laying in the company area that had been killed that morning. So that was a kind of my first eye opener. And I'd been in Vietnam 3 days. I made it to, I was a PFC. I didn't go in to make rank. If I had, I'd have probably went OCS and become an officer. But I was in Vietnam from 1968 to 1969. Me personally, I grew up in Inouye, but I went to Woodruff High School. I played on a state championship football team in 1965 at Woodruff. It was the first undefeated team in the school's history. A lot of those guys are no longer with us, but they are in spirit. About me, I came home from Vietnam with all this PTSD hanging all over me. At the time, I had no idea what it was, but it's real. I'm chronic severe PTSD from what I went through and what I saw in Vietnam. Only in this room can I talk to people about this because we got a great bunch of veterans in the Woodruff area. I mean, a great bunch of Woodruff people. Everybody wants to know about our football team and what we did in football or girls basketball or whatever. But it's our group of veterans that come together that made what we are here in Woodruff. We've got a lot of veterans. We've got a lot of veterans who served. Up front, I'll tell you that I was a combat veteran. I had a combat MOS and 11 Bravo until the first round went off out in the mountains, and I got stuck way up in the mountains of Vietnam, way up high. I had no clue what I was about to go through. I was a Christian, and I knew one thing. I promised God, I said, God, if you just get me back to Inouye, give me a rowboat and 1 oar, and I'll make it to Myrtle Beach. Well, I made it 7 months, and into my 7th month, the Battle of Hamburger Hill broke out in the Ashaw Valley, and that's where I was at. Went 10 days and didn't get a scratch up and down Hamburger. 10 days later, on the other side of the mountain, I had a newbie second lieutenant walk us into 7 of us walk us into a blind ambush, black, dark, and I was the only one that survived. I laid in the jungle for over 10 hours before they found me the next morning. And the ironic thing about that, and God, I thank you today for this, but I didn't bleed out. I had enough shrapnel and bullets in me that it's just like you put a Band-Aid on a sore. It stopped. The bleeding stopped. I could hear Vietnamese voices. I could hear them killing my buddies, but I didn't even have a weapon because right before I got shot, they threw a hand grenade landed right there. I am totally deaf in my right ear now because of that, but I've never stopped. I've always kept going. I guess I owe Coach Varner that. You know, he always said a winner never quits and a quitter never wins. I was never a quitter. I never quit. I just kept going. I was grunting, but I never quit. I knew 3 people that I went in country with, and they all survived. One was from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, one was from Decatur, Alabama. Every morning I had to hear how many records Elvis sold and how many records James Brown sold. That was the argument every morning. But there's a closest, and I guess, Brian, you know this better than anybody. You've been in service a long time, and you just get to know people real good. These people, they had my back, I had their back. And we all walked out of Vietnam alive. And just a couple of years ago, one guy got killed in a car accident, and the other guy, he died of cancer. His wife told me that every day, worked at a nuclear plant down in Alabama. She said every day he would stop at the fast fair or whatever and get a suitcase of beer, come home, sit on the front porch and drink every one of them, throw the cans in the front. But he never, 30 years, he never missed a day of work. My family was they all got drafted. My dad had 7 brothers, and they all went. Wasn't no draft dodging or anything like that going on back then. We went. And I was the first grandson to go. My grandmother told me, I remember going to talk to her because she had experience. She saw 8 of her sons go through the military, and they all came back. And I was thinking, well, do I go to Canada? Do I dodge the draft? Because that was a popular thing to do. This is the time, because the Democrats were having their convention forever. And boy, it wasn't 10,000, it was 100,000 people protesting the draft. And later, after I realized what was going on, and in later years, I didn't realize that what I was doing and what I was fighting for was actually so they had the right to do what they wanted to do. That's what makes America so great. I just don't think you have to. I think there's a peaceful way to do it, and not having to burn down buildings and go about it in that atrocious way. Along the way, when I got settled, and I got out of the Army on Friday night, went back to my old job in the mill, in Emmons Mills, and the next morning, Saturday morning, back to my old job. I actually had people come up to me and said, "Where have you been?" I've been gone 2 years, and they went, "Where have you been?" "Oh, I've been around behind the mill hiding." No, I just got in stride, and then I was fortunate enough to have taken the civil service exam and landed a job with the post office, and worked at Spartanburg Post Office 10 years. And one day a little bell went off and said, and I was going back to school. I was going to Spartanburg Community College, and this is what I'll do. I'll quit the post office, which you didn't quit a government job back then, and I'll go to work doing something else. And it was on a Saturday morning. I was looking, never read a Wall Street Journal in my life, and one of my doctors had not come. He didn't open on Saturday, and there it was, big as it, that big. Salesman wanted, had a Dallas, Texas address, and I called it. They flew up to Columbia, and they interviewed over 100 people that week, and I was the last one they interviewed. And I'll never forget, the recruiter's name was Bob Greenfield. And Bob, when I got back to NRE, Kay, my first wife, was standing in the doorway saying, "You got the phone?" And it was Bob Greenfield, and he said, "When do you want to come to work?" Well, this was total shock, because I'd heard that you had to wait 10 years for a job or whatever, and they were willing to hire me now. So I had to make a quick decision. And so I said, "Yeah, I'll go to work." So one of the best decisions I ever made in my life. I got to meet a lot of people in Spartanburg. I met the people all the people meant a lot to me. And I worked a lot of hours, got paid a lot of money, but my heart was still, Vietnam was still going. And my heart was still with my buddies back in Vietnam. And I'm thinking, we're good at getting in wars, we're just not good at getting out of wars. There's no more braver men, and in this room is a testimony to that, than our people from right here in Woodruff, Spartanburg County. I later became Veterans Affairs Director 30 years later. There's 30,000 veterans living in Spartanburg County, 5,000 with us. And I had 4 people. I couldn't spread myself any thinner, but I wanted to help every veteran that came through the door. And they had a policy at that time that you had to have an appointment. Well, I knew that was crazy because there's some people who couldn't get appointments. So I just said, first come, first serve. And that's what we did. They were lined up out the door, but I stayed to 7, 8 o'clock at night trying to, and you guys know what it is to get a claim through. That's not an easy process. It's still not an easy process. I was reading the other night on the internet, on Facebook, where it's still a fight. I'm going to say this because I witnessed this, but the VA has 2 goals in mind for us veterans. Number 1, that we'll die, and number 2, they'll make us so mad we'll go away. Well, in this room, there's a lot of no-go-awayers. Right, Tom?
Right.
Tom came to me, and we ended up helping him, and the apple was at the end of the tree, wasn't it, Tom?
Yeah, it was.
And I wouldn't let you give up. I wouldn't let anybody give up. You don't give up. I got that from Coach Warner. I just don't. You don't give up. You get back up and keep going. And I like to think I was successful in helping a lot of guys get to that prize of 100% disabled, where they can get their money. But it's not an easy task to go in the military. I don't know if you guys know it or not, but for every one of me, infantry, there's 10 guys in support. Charlie, I know you were that in the Navy. You were a support. You'd have swum the ocean for me. And the rest of you too. Tom? All of you. Every one of you would have done it. So you gain that experience. And what do you get out of it? I think the one thing that I gained more than anything out of that was discipline. The Army taught me discipline. I was not a bad soldier. I never taught back. I never made it to sergeant. I turned down because a married man didn't have to walk point. That was 101st policy. So I was safe in a way from walking at the front of the file, and I was put at the back of the file. But I did my job. I got put on more ambushes than you can imagine just because of that. But I did my job. Brian, I did my job.
That's right.
I did it in an admirable way. So that when I came back home from Vietnam, I could look all my uncles in the face and say, hey, I did this and I did that. And I had an uncle, Uncle Johnny, who just passed away several years ago, was in the 2nd tank on the beach at Normandy. 2nd tank on Normandy. Went all the way to the Rhine River, and he never got a scratch. But he never shared his story with me, and he lived right across the road from me in Ennery. And then one day he came over in his motorized chair, and I had to get a stick to chase him home because he had so many stories. And I'm thinking, here's a little boy off the Ennery Mill Village, and he was telling his story to me. And so much parallel that we run. He had a story just like I had a story. Kay was a school teacher at Woodruff Elementary, and through the years, she one day come home and she said, would you come and speak to my class? And this is after about 3 or 4 years. So that was my first trial and error about speaking before a group, and that was a school. And from that point in time, I never hesitated when somebody asked me to come speak, whether it be at a church or a club or wherever. I would go. And I would tell them just exactly what it was like. I got to tell this. There was a little boy in Kay's 5th grade class. First person. He had questions and answers, you know. And he was waving his hand, and he looked at me, and he said, "Mr. Simmons," he said, "how many did you kill?" That's what I said. "Oh, the first." But they knew, they were aware, because they were watching it on TV at night. They were aware of what was going on. But I went back to my job at the mill, worked 6 months, and then the post office called me and hired me right on the spot. I worked 10 years with the post office and came out, and then I like to think I had the best job in America. This company that I went to work for in Dallas was a chemical company, specialty chemical company, and they sold every kind of chemical in the world. I got on the elevator with the guy who actually was in charge of that division. There wasn't but 4 people, and I outlived them all. But we colored football fields for the National Football League and every major college. Clemson and South Carolina and Florida State and Miami and the Orange Bowl, Gator Bowl, Liberty Bowl, Citrus Bowl. I sold the material, and I had no competition because there wasn't another company out there doing it. So every Monday morning I would fly to Dallas, check in with my secretary. She'd have a briefcase, and I'd go to San Diego, or I'd go up to Pasadena, or I'd go to Shea Stadium or Yankee Stadium. Just had a good job. Story. I was at Yankee Stadium, and I had no clue. Didn't know who Art Fowler was, but I knew his wife. And I was playing around, giggling there. He was watching me, and I was doing the logo, you know. And he walks up to me and said, "Somebody told me you were from Spartanburg." I said, "No, I was from Inouye." And he said, "Well, I'm from Spartanburg." I said, "You are?" He said, "Yeah, I'm the pitching coach for the Yankees." So so every place I went, whether it be a head coach, became good friends with Danny Ford. All up the line, I knew all the coaches, Art Baker at Furman, and just followed that path. But along the way, I learned not to be greedy. I did make a lot of money, but I spent a lot of money. I had 2 girls, and I paid for their college. So I got asked to come to this. This is a good organization. This is how it starts, guys, because I've helped a lot of people. In South Carolina, we got a lot of memorials. But I want to shame Woodruff. Not shame, I shouldn't say that word, but anyway. Inouye's got a memorial, but Woodruff doesn't have a memorial. We can't have that. We got to have a memorial in Woodruff. So that when people come, and I'm proud of this, they can look at that and say, "God, look at the veterans of this community." And we got to do it now, y'all. We got to do it now. So we need your help. We need your help. There's ways of raising money. There's people in this room that we can do it. Put our heads together. We can raise enough money to build the prettiest. It's in the make. We just got to do it. And the Woodruff people from Woodruff just got to get together and do it. And that's what you're doing here today. I really appreciate what y'all have done. I was in the hospital about 5 months. I can't walk. Agent Orange caught up with me in a big way. But through Facebook, through people that we know in the community, this is not a white and black thing. It's not. This is a veterans thing. I remember one day, and a grenade went off, and it just pelletized all of us, and we were bleeding. And Johnson was a black kid from Pittsburgh, and he looked over at me, and he was a quiet guy, and he saw me bleeding. He come over, put his arm up, and he said, "We both bleed red." That has stuck with me forever. Yeah. That's how I knew that God was in this. And I always thank God. Angie and me pray for our veterans, and if y'all are not doing it, just take a special time out of your night to say, God, thank you for because I didn't know Brian Richards, but I do now. And I'd say, God, be with our veterans. And Brian's still in, okay? I met Tom Davies, a good friend, because I knew Karen, one of my buddies from high school. Charlie Richards was on, well, you were a freshman maybe when I was a senior. What? Junior. But
I think.
there's some great people in this, it's gonna be, it's not little anymore. Angie and I come down 101, can't believe all the land they're clearing just to build houses and stuff. But you know what? That's progress. And we just gotta get with the flow and do it. Most of us will be dead by the time those houses are. I'm coming, Lord. But let me thank all of y'all. We need your help. We need your help. We're just a giving community. They've always gotten behind our teams. Now they need to get behind their veterans. And somebody will be knocking on your door, or somebody will be meeting you right out here in this front of the street and saying, give us $1, give us $10, give us $100. That's how we're going to build our memorial. You people are going to be a part of it along with us. And as Forrest Gump says, that's all I got to say about this.